Just us. Just us.
It is time for another jump shot edition of the Just Us Golden State Warriors podcast. Today we have the Golden State Warriors taking on the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers have had the Warriors number for a while now, traditionally, so we really struggle against them. The Warriors actually haven't beaten the Clippers since the 2023 season. So Clippers no doubt wanted to keep the streak going and Warriors wanted to break it, so we were expecting everyone to play hard, and that is what happened. I'd be lying if I said I went into watching it confident that the Warriors would win, but I had some hope given recent performances. I think this is the first time in a while that Kawhi was playing against the Warriors as well, so he's back in action. The first quarter immediately showed that it was going to be a very physical game from the outset, and that is pretty much how it unfolded. The early bright spots were, once again, Kuminga being very, very patient on offense and careful on defense too. He was assigned James Harden, which is a good sign that Steve Kerr is giving him more and more trust as he wanted. He was still hitting some really sharp passes, keeping an eye on Steph and getting the ball in his hands when he could. The last time Kuminga played against the Clippers, he dropped 34 points on them, so I imagine he's feeling a little more confident this time around. Quinton was defending Zubats very well. He was a big surprise. We expected him to not be as good as he usually is, given his slow start, but he was really putting in the work. He was holding his ground. He hit some really good threes at points. He was really working hard to close out, and it seems like Al Horford's mentoring of him is definitely helping for sure. The Warriors were doing their best to contest as much as possible and maintaining their defense as much as possible too. The main thing that got them in trouble was, once again, James Harden coming up under arms or getting fouled on three-pointers. The first quarter actually ended with a very last-second three-point shot from Pods, which was very, very clutch. Second quarter saw Chris Paul III come back into the game, or join the game for the first time, come back to Chase Center, taking on a former team. He played for the Warriors for a little bit. That's probably about less than a year of his 21-year career. QP continued to be quite tenacious on defense in the second quarter, rebounding and battling the ball and batting the ball towards other players when it was in a scramble. He was doing everything right, honestly, which was really cool to see. Kerr kind of left him on, let him continue to play. So Al Horford was getting a bunch of rest time. Again, a good sign that Steve Kerr trusted him in that moment. There was an incredible moment where CP3 got the ball and basically was ahead of the pack. Clear line to lay up the ball, and from behind, like a lion chasing a gazelle, Brandon Pajemski chased him down and blocked him on the board, which was enough to make the crowd erupt. And then he sprinted back, got the ball, and laid it up on the other end. And as you can imagine, the already surging crowd went pretty much crazy at that point, which was fun. Will Richard also came on in the second quarter, and he was assigned to defending Harden, I believe, at one point, which, again, a lot of trust in him from the coaching staff, and he's definitely earned it over the last few games for sure. Al eventually came in, and there was some really good defensive recovery thanks to him. He was saving a lot of turnovers and making sure that he was pressuring Zubats as much as possible to make things difficult for them. The scariest thing about it at this point, second quarter, about halfway through, was the Warriors were doing a lot of things right. They were working super hard during the second quarter, scoring a bunch, defending a bunch, but when you take a look at the score difference, it was only about 8 points at one stage. It felt like they should have been up way more. But that just speaks to how good the Clippers have been. They were shooting and laying the ball up very, very effectively. Zubats has always been a big problem for the Warriors, but they've been good about collapsing on him and making it difficult for him to rebound and get any lobs. As with the first quarter, Harden was playing the free throw game. He's very tricky, and sometimes it looked like almost unavoidable that he'd draw a foul. A sneaky man. The shot selection in the second quarter from the Warriors started to go a bit off the rails, and they were shooting a lot of threes and missing. They had around 20 points in the paint, but they weren't leaning into that. They kept on trying to shoot threes, and before long, the Clippers had leveled the score at about 44 points, which is when Kerr took a timeout. And if you're keeping track of Steph damage, he has a pretty nasty scrape on his neck, which I don't know when he got it, but it looked really gnarly. After the timeout, Jimmy hit a mid-range, which got the crowd back into things. Steph set a screen for him, and Jimmy shot it over Derrick Jones Jr. and began a little bit of momentum. Unfortunately, couldn't get enough to. It wasn't enough to get Steph going. He was still missing a bunch, but he didn't look disheartened at all. He just played through it. By this point, the Warriors were 8 of 24 on threes and not really giving up on that 3-point shot. By the time halftime came, the score was 49-46 with the Clippers ahead. So we're going into the second half of the game, and I'm hopeful that they come out with a lot of energy and start to build up the score and hopefully create some distance. It's not going to be easy. James Harden's playing well, Kawhi is playing well, Zubac is doing his best as well, and there needs to be a shift in mentality from the Warriors to do the things that are consistently going to get them points instead of risking it on 3 points. But we'll see how it goes. I'll see you very soon for that. All right. Game's over, and I come to you bearing good news. The Warriors won in a convincing and commanding way, which I did not expect. Fourth quarter began with the Clippers coming out with a lot of intensity to try to set the tone, but the Warriors reciprocated and matched that intensity with a lot of pressure and keeping the hands active. The Warriors needed to kickstart the offense, and it turned out to be Quinton Post that did it with a big three. The Clippers were doing a really good job of keeping Steph out of the action. He switched it up to start doing layups since his threes weren't hitting the mark, which worked out nicely. He did manage to get a three off, but was fouled on it, so he went to the line for the first time in the second half. You could tell he was trying his best to get his engine roaring, but was struggling a bit there. QP wasn't able to neutralize Zubac as well in the third quarter, but he managed to clean up a few things and do some successful defensive plays. He was also still being smart about positioning, so he got a few interceptions and a few rebounds too. It started to become apparent that the Clippers were trying to play a slower, more methodical game where they wanted to get the ball to Harden or Kawhi, and the Warriors were trying to go the other way and speed things up by staying on the move and getting the ball across the court as quickly as possible when they had possession. At one point, Pods hit a really nasty sidestep three in the third, and he was at that point the only one making threes. Steph, unfortunately, still cold at that point. Still, again, he was active and making a difference. Steph managed to get another steal, which means I think he has 1 steal per game so far this season. He got a deflection too immediately after, which he converted into a layup. So despite not making his threes, he was still contributing in a very meaningful way. They still weren't able to get a lot of separation, the Warriors, at that point, with 3 minutes left in the third, but they were fighting for it, which was encouraging. They were doing well at turning successful defense into quick offense, and they were playing with energy and moving the ball around a lot, which was good. Jimmy was hitting a bunch of threes when he got the chance. He doesn't like shooting threes, but when he has been this season, they've been going in, which is good for us. That seemed to get people fired up as Moses Moody came in and hit a three immediately after him. Buddy wasn't hitting threes. The Splash Buddy wasn't doing what we expect of him, but he was creating opportunities with his defense and jumping high to get in those rebounds. And then whatever talk that they had at halftime really supercharged their defense. The Warriors were one of the best defensive teams last season after Jimmy joined, and they showed that in the third quarter. They showed that they could still play like that on D and even tighten it up a bit more. So the Warriors looking very good on defense. The fourth quarter started with a missed three from Moody and a foul from QP, which was worrying, but it wasn't as ill a portent as it seemed like it could have been thanks to Jimmy, who once again turned it up and put the ball through the net with a high arc floater that was really beautiful, and I think that helped keep the momentum. By that point, it was about 66-80 to the Warriors with 10 minutes left. Harden and Steph were both on the bench at that time, so it was a fight to maintain the lead until Steph got back on the court. Somehow, Moody won a jump ball against Lopez, who is considerably taller than him, and in the replay they showed Lopez and he looked flabbergasted. He was so confused at what just happened. Harden came back on with 9 minutes left, but the youngsters weren't letting up. Jimmy fed both QP and Moody, and they both nailed their threes. And this is exactly what Jimmy was brought in to do. Steph was sitting on the bench, but the offense didn't suffer because of it. Jimmy was keeping people moving and keeping the momentum going forward. It feels like they've really found something with the Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Quinton Post, Moses Moody, and Brandon Pajemski combo. I feel like they're going to be using that setup a lot in the future. So the Warriors were holding the Clippers to around 35% shooting and then built a 20-point lead. Still, it didn't feel like they could take their foot off the gas because the Clippers, as always, are super dangerous. Steph came back in with 5 minutes left. He was rested, and I hoped he was ready to pop off. He hit a three immediately, and that was a good sign. And at that point, once he hit that three, the Clippers took Harden and Kawhi off, which is essentially waved the white flag as what the Warriors were maintaining the 20-point lead. In the second half, the Clippers were actually being held to 21 points for most of it. Guy Santos came in at 4 minutes, which means Jimmy and Steph and Draymond all went to the bench. Horford started bullying people and going for jump hooks and rebounds. So the final score was 78-98, with the Warriors winning it. Overall, huge game for Quinton Post, and the game showed off that the Warriors still have a lot of defensive prowess. They continue to show that they don't need Steph to go nuclear every night to win, and they don't need Jimmy to help dig them out of really deep holes. More importantly, they ended the losing streak against the Clippers, who have, I think they've beaten them the last 7 times in a row. This was having beaten the Lakers, the Nuggets, and the Grizzlies already. They have to be feeling really good so far, and hopefully they can carry those vibes forward when they hit the road now to take on Bucks and Giannis. That's going to be on Thursday in Milwaukee, and we will be back for another jump shot then. Shazia will be here, so your time with just listening to me is over. I hope I haven't bored you too much, but we'll see you again for the next one. Remember to like and subscribe while you're here. Share it if you can. I'm trying to grow this little podcast of ours, so anything you can do to help would be super appreciated. Just us on three. 1, 2, 3. Just us.